They called him a backup. They called him an experiment. They called him anything except what he really was, the man who shattered the NFL's biggest lie. 1968, a black quarterback takes the field. Not for a photo op, not for progress, but because every other option had failed. And what happened next? He didn't just play, he dominated. He turned broken plays into masterpieces. He made defenders look lost. He filled stadiums. He won games nobody thought Denver could win. The crowd roared his name. His teammates trusted him with their careers. The city called him the magician. So, here's the question nobody wants to answer. If he was this good, why did the NFL erase him? Not benched, not traded, erased. Removed from history like he never existed. His highlights disappeared. His name vanished from record books. And for 50 years, the league pretended the first black quarterback never happened. But here's what they don't want you to know. He didn't fail. He terrified them. Because every touchdown he threw, every game he won, every defense he destroyed, it broke their biggest rule. A rule they never wrote down, but always enforced. So what happens when a man becomes too good to ignore, but too dangerous to allow? In the summer of 1968, something impossible walked into Denver's training camp. Not impossible because of talent, impossible because of color. The Broncos were drowning. Their offense was a disaster. Fans were leaving at halftime. Coaches were one loss away from being fired. The entire franchise was collapsing in real time. They needed a miracle, but they weren't looking for one in him. Marlin Briscoe, a 14th-round draft pick, listed as a defensive back before he even arrived. Why? Because the NFL had an unwritten law in 1968. Black men don't lead. Black men don't call plays. Black men don't stand under center and command white teammates. That position was protected, like a secret the league would kill to keep. But here's where it gets insane. Briscoe wasn't just good at quarterback, he was elite. And the moment he touched the football at practice, everyone knew it. His throws had a different sound, sharper, faster, more precise than anything Denver's coaching staff had seen all year. Teammates started whispering, "Why isn't he starting?" Coaches pretended not to hear, because acknowledging his talent meant admitting their system was built on a lie. So what did Denver do? They ignored him. Week after week, they trotted out failing quarterbacks while the best player in camp stood on the sideline wearing the wrong jersey number, watching, waiting, ready. Then injuries hit. Denver's starting QB went down. The backup couldn't move the ball. The third-string guy threw 3 interceptions in one half. The stadium was booing. The season was dying, and the coaches were out of excuses. They had one option left, the option they swore they'd never use. Late in a meaningless game, with nothing to lose and everything already lost, they finally put him in. One series, one chance, one opportunity to do what the entire league said he could never do. The huddle went silent when he walked in. Some players looked confused. Some looked hopeful. Some just stared, wondering if this was really happening. A black quarterback in 1968, calling plays in an NFL huddle. Briscoe looked each man in the eye. No fear, no hesitation. Then he called the play with a voice that didn't ask for permission. The ball snapped. What happened next changed everything. He dodged one defender, slipped past another, rolled right with pressure collapsing all around him. And just when the defense thought they had him cornered, he threw a laser. Touchdown. The stadium exploded. But here's the part that should terrify you. That wasn't luck. That wasn't beginner's magic. That was skill the NFL had been hiding from America for decades. Because if fans saw what Briscoe could do, if they realized a black quarterback could not just play, but dominate, what else would they start questioning? What other lies would collapse? The league knew the answer. And that's exactly why what they did next was so evil. The next week, Denver made a decision that shook the entire league. They started him. A 14th-round rookie. A man who wasn't even drafted as a quarterback. A black quarterback in 1968, a sentence the NFL still couldn't say out loud without choking. But Denver had no choice. Their season was dead. And Marlin Briscoe was the only man who could resurrect it. From the first snap, everything changed. This wasn't just football. This was a revolution happening in real time on national television, and nobody was ready for it. Briscoe moved like he'd been doing this his entire life. Calm under pressure, precise in chaos, intelligent in ways that made defensive coordinators look stupid. When the pocket collapsed, he didn't panic, he glided. When defenses blitzed, he didn't crumble, he calculated. Every throw looked effortless. Every scramble looked planned. Every decision looked like he was 3 steps ahead of everyone else on the field. The crowd didn't just cheer, they roared, like they were watching something they'd been told was impossible suddenly become undeniable. Reporters scrambled to their typewriters. Defensive coaches lost sleep. And teammates, they started believing in something Denver hadn't felt in years: hope. Week after week, Briscoe carved up defenses. Broken plays became touchdowns. 3rd and long became first downs. Games they should have lost became wins. The city fell in love. Newspapers called him the magician. Kids wore his number. Fans screamed his name before kickoff. He wasn't just saving Denver's season. He was rewriting what America thought was possible. But here's what you need to understand. Every touchdown he threw wasn't just points on a scoreboard. It was a crack in the foundation of a lie the NFL had protected for decades. The lie? That black men couldn't lead, couldn't think, couldn't command. And Marlin Briscoe was destroying that lie every single Sunday. So let me ask you something. What do you think happened next? You think the league celebrated him? You think they embraced the future? You think they said, "Wow, we were wrong"? No. Because while Denver's fans were celebrating, while teammates were trusting him with their careers, while the world was watching this 23-year-old kid prove everyone wrong, something dark was happening behind closed doors. In boardrooms, in coaches' offices, in meetings where cameras weren't allowed and truth didn't matter. Executives started asking questions that had nothing to do with football. Is he too confident? Does he study the right way? Will this create problems we can't control? Notice the pattern? These questions were never asked when white rookies made mistakes. They were invented for him. Because Briscoe's success wasn't just impressive, it was dangerous. Dangerous to a system built on keeping certain people in certain positions. Dangerous to coaches who'd spent careers saying this couldn't work. Dangerous to a league that convinced America leadership had a color. And the most dangerous part, he was making it look easy. So while Marlin was winning games on Sunday, the NFL was planning something evil for Monday. Something quiet, something permanent, something that would erase him from history before history could protect him. Here's what they don't teach you about power. It doesn't fight fair. It doesn't argue. It just erases. And that's exactly what the NFL did to Marlin Briscoe. As Denver's season ended, the city expected one thing: Briscoe would return next year as a starting quarterback. He'd earned it. He'd saved them. He'd done the impossible. But the NFL doesn't reward greatness when greatness threatens the system. The first sign? Silence. No phone call, no meeting, no conversation about next season. Nothing. Briscoe waited. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The team that called him the magician suddenly acted like he didn't exist. Then the betrayal came. Denver signed not one, but 2 new white quarterbacks. No competition announced, no explanation given, no respect shown. It was like the franchise decided to replace him without ever admitting he was there. But here's the truly evil part. The same newspapers that praised him as the magician suddenly changed their tone. Stories appeared questioning his attitude, his approach, his fit with the team. Nothing specific, just vague enough to plant doubt, just subtle enough to justify what they were about to do. You want to know how racism really works? It's not always loud, it's not always violent. Sometimes it's just whispers. Whispers that turn a hero into a problem, a pioneer into a question mark, a winner into someone we're going in a different direction from. Briscoe returned to training camp anyway, determined, hopeful, still believing talent would protect him. But the moment he walked into the facility, he knew. His locker had been moved, his playbook reassigned, his name removed from the quarterback depth chart. No confrontation, no argument, just erasure. Teammates looked confused. Some asked questions, most stayed silent, because everyone could see what was happening. The franchise was pretending they didn't need him, pretending his success was an accident, pretending the season they just lived never happened. And here's the cruelest part. The coaches didn't cut him because of mistakes. They cut him because he succeeded in a role they never wanted him to have. Think about that. Punished not for losing, punished for winning too well. Briscoe tried to stay composed. He practiced harder. He showed up earlier. He kept believing. But every day the message became clearer. You are no longer a quarterback. Not to Denver, not to the NFL, not to the system that built its walls long before you arrived. And the worst part? The door they quietly closed behind them was the same door they planned to lock forever. Because if they let one black quarterback succeed, what would stop the next one? And the one after that? The NFL wasn't just rejecting Marlin Briscoe, they were sending a message to every black kid who dreamed of calling plays. Don't even try. When Denver pushed Marlin Briscoe out, he still believed the NFL would save him. He believed talent mattered. He believed film didn't lie. He believed someone somewhere would pick up the phone and say what Denver refused to admit. We saw what you did. We want you. But the phone never rang. Not the first week, not the second, not the month after, not ever. And here's what makes this sick. He watched white rookie quarterbacks with half his stats get interviews, headlines, and tryouts. Meanwhile, his name slowly faded from conversations like he never existed. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an oversight. This was a strategy. Teams offered excuses that sounded polite but meant something evil. Our roster is full. We're going in a different direction. Your style doesn't fit our system. Our playbook is too complex. And then came the most honest answer he ever received. We're not ready for that kind of attention. That sentence said everything without saying anything. They weren't afraid he would fail. They were afraid he would succeed again. Because if a black quarterback succeeded in 1968, what else would change? What else would be questioned? What power would be challenged? Week after week, Briscoe waited. Month after month, he called teams himself. Every rejection cut deeper than the last. Not because they doubted his talent, but because they feared it. Imagine knowing you're good enough, but being told the world isn't ready for you. Imagine watching your own highlights disappear from TV archives. Imagine seeing your own name erased from articles. Imagine being turned into a ghost while you were still alive. That's what the NFL did to him. Then Buffalo finally called, but not for quarterback, not for the position he mastered, not for the leadership he proved he had. They wanted him as a receiver. Any position was fine, as long as it didn't involve command, decision-making, authority, as long as it didn't threaten the unspoken rulebook the NFL protected at all costs. And because he loved football more than pride, he accepted. He rebuilt himself. He learned the new position. He became a Pro Bowl wide receiver, making big plays out of the broken pieces of his dream. But deep down, he knew the truth. He hadn't been replaced by better talent. He'd been buried by a system terrified of what he represented. The NFL hadn't benched him. The NFL had erased him. But here's what they didn't understand. You can bury a man. You can erase his name. You can pretend he never existed. But you can't erase what he proved. You can't erase the film. You can't erase the wins. You can't erase the fact that for one beautiful season in 1968, a black quarterback dominated the NFL. And that truth would haunt the league for decades. Part 5, Finale. For 50 years, the NFL pretended Marlin Briscoe never happened. His name disappeared from record books. His highlights vanished from documentaries. His story erased like it was too dangerous to remember. But here's what the league didn't count on. Truth doesn't die. It just waits. In 1988, Doug Williams lifted the Lombardi Trophy as the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Cameras flashed, headlines exploded, reporters called it historic. And in his interviews, Doug said something the NFL never expected. Marlin Briscoe did it first. The NFL owes him more than silence. That was the beginning of the reckoning. Suddenly, journalists started digging through archives, searching for the forgotten magician of Denver. And what they found was devastating. Grainy film of Briscoe dodging defenders, rolling right, firing perfect strikes into the end zone. Footage the league had quietly ignored was now impossible to unsee. Documentaries asked a simple but brutal question. How did the NFL lose its first black quarterback? Or did it try to? Old coaches mumbled excuses, executives pretended they never knew. But the truth was clear. They hadn't forgotten him, they had buried him. And now history was digging him back up. Late in life, the NFL invited Briscoe to events. He stood on stages that once rejected him, accepted honors that once ignored him, and smiled with a quiet grace that said everything. No bitterness, no revenge, no anger. Because he didn't need it. His existence was the proof. His survival was the victory. Every highlight reel updated. Every documentary corrected. Every quarterback who stood under center, black, white, or anything else, now stood in a world he helped create. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton. Every single one of them owes a debt to the man the NFL tried to erase, because Marlin Briscoe didn't just play quarterback in 1968. He opened a door the league had welded shut. He shattered a ceiling they said was unbreakable. And even after they erased him, even after they silenced him, even after they tried to make the world forget him, he won. When Marlin Briscoe passed away in 2022, the NFL finally spoke his name the way it always should have. Pioneer, trailblazer, leader, the first. Because some stories can be buried, but they can't be erased. Not when every snap of every modern quarterback carries a piece of the magician. Not when truth outlives the people who try to hide it. And not when a man changes history, even if history tries to look the other way. The NFL tried to remove their first black quarterback, but what they really did, they proved that greatness can't be erased, only delayed. And 56 years later, the magician's legacy is more powerful than the lie that tried to bury him.